Let me begin with this. He said, "I can't stand it anymore. It's doing my head in. This place used to be like a village." "What's the matter with it?" I said. "It's full of foreigners," he said. "I love Walthamstow," he said. "But I can't stay here, I'm going." I wondered where, but I said nothing. He didn't say anything else, so I said, "Where to?" "Spain," he said. Let me begin with an image from today. I've been all day in a school in Small Heath in Birmingham, and it was a school where I think more or less every single child was either a migrant, or their parents were, or their grandparents were. And it was a very exciting and illuminating day, and I read poems, and they showed me the poems that they had written, and it was a fantastic day. And then just as I was going, I was talking to the person who's in charge of language and literacy in the school, and he said, right, because we were talking about books, you see, and how to get books, more books into the school, and he said, "Well, we've got a problem, and that is that in Birmingham, they've just shut down the school library service." The school library service has been a fantastic, wonderful organisation, institution, whatever you want to call it, across this country, that basically all a teacher would have to say is, "I am doing a project on," fill in the gap. You ring up the school library service and they arrive. They arrive with hundreds of books, or as many books as you want, and they can flood your school with books because they have a bloody great big warehouse in region after region in the country. It's not just one, it's from area to area, borough to borough. That's what we used to have. It was a fantastic facility, and a few places have held out from the last set of cuts, and from depredations from New Labour, who tried to privatise it and all the rest of it, and Birmingham was holding out. And would you believe it? They bloody closed it. They've closed it. So here you are, Mr. Cameron. We're sending letters to Mr. Cameron. We're addressing Mr. Cameron tonight. I haven't seen him here yet, but anyway, there we are. And we say, "Okay, so here's your agenda. You're moaning on about these people. Many of the children in the school were in fact Muslims. So here you are, you're saying there's a problem about integration, there's a problem about assimilation, or whatever language you're using, and what are the consequences of your policy? You are depriving those kids of cultural access. That is the direct consequence of your policy." There, speaking with forked tongue. Absolutely classic. You can see they lie through their teeth. On the one hand, they put out that populist crap, which is, as you've heard this evening, is a direct racist assault on individuals and groups in the community, and quite often it's quite random, as it happens. We are in this era of Islamophobia. We've been in other eras, as we know, as we've heard this evening, but when it actually comes down to it, the guy is pretending that he's talking about culture, and what is happening? Those children in that school are being deprived of access to hundreds and hundreds of books. Now multiply that across the country, and that's what's actually going on. You are taking away that stuff from the kids. Now I want you to hold that image in your head while talk about one or two other things. People haven't mentioned this so far this evening. When we talk about migration, let's be quite clear. This isn't some strange aberration. This isn't some sort of odd thing that happens every now and then, that like a few thousand people living in Jamaica or in Bangladesh or something suddenly get together and go, "Hey, let's go somewhere. Yeah, where should we go? Let's go to Britain." Wow. And that this is some odd, strange, extreme activity that somehow or other, you know, that we need to watch out for in case there's too much of it or there's going to be a problem. This is what human beings do. It's what they've always done everywhere in the world. There is just migration. That's what happens. You know, we should really ban the word immigration, all right? I know we can't, I'm not banning words, but in a way, right, it's because that's what happens. You know what happens? Where did the Brits go? They go in their millions. If you go to southwest France, right, you will see fish and chip shops. You will see Brits walking about in the street speaking English very loudly. It annoys some French people. They get very, very cross about it. There are hundreds and thousands of Brits. There are millions of Brits all over the world. Some of them hang on to their passports and play cricket. They even try to teach the French cricket, which hasn't gone down too well, I can tell you. But anyway, as it happens, some of them have, you know, well, anyway, they can't keep their arms straight. But anyway, that's another matter. That's a joke, by the way. Right. So that's what human beings do. Actually, I mean, if you want to be odd about it, I mean, any human existence on these islands are a consequence of migration, because once they were covered in snow and ice. So actually, whatever happens about this country, it has always been about migration, and people have migrated to it and from it. And that is the situation in human beings everywhere. Now, the challenge for us, and as it happens for these people like Cameron, is what do you do about this? How do you describe this? How do you envisage it? How do you envision or universal migration when you're sitting in a country? Now, we know how Cameron envisages it. He poses this. He suggests there is really a host culture with a set of host values. It's lies, as people have said. That stuff he was talking about voting and the rest of it, if they're anything, they're universal values that this country, in actual fact, has never really signed up to. Bill of Rights, French Revolution stuff. So the idea that this country has got something to teach the rest of the world on that stuff is lies and bollocks, as we know. But let's just get the model going on here. There is a host culture, and there are the others. Yeah? Assimilation is what's going to happen. That's what we, Cameron is saying, we're asking for. But the trouble is, some buggers won't assimilate. But we're going to make them, okay? That's the narrative, yeah? But it's lies. And the reason why it's lies is because the whole point about the assimilation argument is that when you are an other, you are always an other. The whole idea is that you come knocking at the door. And you spend the whole of your life knocking at the door, and we, the Camerons, will never let you in. That is the point. The assimilation argument is to keep people's subject. So mostly it's about people with brown skin, but not only. We heard George's argument of Irish Catholicism. It applied to my lot, the Jews. It's applied to all sorts of peoples across history. The whole point is that there are prices to pay, and most of these people defined as other cannot come in. That is what the purpose of that is. It is to keep people, to keep most of us, all of us probably in this room, in a subject position. No matter what we do, what religion we buy into, no matter what culture we'll take, no matter if we do sit down on Friday night and eat fish and chips, or whatever it is that we're supposed to do, or that we wave a Union Jack, at the end of the day, you can't fucking come in. That is the point. You stay as other. There are people in this room, as I'm saying, all of us probably, we cannot get in, and that is the idea. So that's what we have to hold. Now go back to that image that I gave you at the beginning. That school, whatever it was, 100%, 99, it doesn't matter, of that school and those children, okay? Here's a perfect example of how you can't get in. Because the Cameron argument is that the Michael Gove argument is that we're going to read Dryden to them, and Pope, and English literature. We're going to these poor, backward and other people, and then somehow or other there will be assimilation and integration. But even as they say that in the conferences, they're taking the stuff away. I've got nothing against anybody reading anything. But in actual fact, what are they doing? They're saying you can't have that stuff. You can't have the Shakespeare or the Dickens and all that lovely English literature because there aren't the books there for you to have them. So that's how they do the trick. It's how they keep those kids in that school outside of the charmed circle. We, the Camerons, we can get hold of that stuff. We've got oodles of money and we know all the networks and all the channels, and we go to schools that cost more to go to than most people earn in a year, that the cost of going to Eton is whatever it is, 50, 60,000 a year. It's more than most people earn. And there they get access to all that stuff, and then they go to Oxbridge, which will soon be costing 9,000 a year. They get that stuff, right? But those kids in that school, they're not allowed to have it. That's actually what's going on. So, what do we propose instead? We've heard about multiculturalism, we've heard about diversity. I'm going to lob another jargon word in, interculturalism. Because I think that just as human migration is what goes on, what happens is, in the whole of the history of humankind, what we have done is share cultures. When archaeologists dig down into the ground and they find these little bits of artifacts, as it happens here in Britain, and they dig down and they find stuff, and what do they find? They find peoples 7,000, 8,000 years ago sharing cultures. They find a bronze shield, and they find that the carving on it comes from the Middle East. It is just quite stunning how human beings, right from whenever we've known, have shared culture. Of course, human beings have fought against each other and killed each other and massacred each other, we know that. But even as they were doing that, they were actually sharing culture. The evil, frightful Eichmann, you know what he was an expert in? Hebrew. Yeah, it gets that bad. I'm not promoting it by any means, believe me. But all I'm saying is you cannot stop human beings sharing culture and sharing language and sharing ideas. That's what we do. We've done it this evening. You know, I've heard stuff that I've never heard before, and that's what we do all the time. So I think what we do is, yes, of course, we celebrate diversity, we celebrate our version of multiculturalism, but even that, I want to say what we do is we share our sharing. That's what we do. We celebrate our sharing, and that is what's powerful. You know, when these guys hold up Chaucer and Shakespeare and say this is English literature, they are lying. They are lying. Chaucer, who wrote the Canterbury Tales, that's what's known as a frame story, right? It's surrounded with a story of some geezers walking along and they're going off to Canterbury, right? They're going off to the shrine at Canterbury and they're telling each other stories. Where does the idea of a frame story come from? You hear them tell stories and then you go back on the road and you listen to the guys talking. It comes from the Middle East. The frame story was a Middle Eastern idea. When people talk about Shakespeare, almost all of Shakespeare's plays, one way or another, borrow stuff. The very language that he's using, the blank verse, well, that comes from the Romans, if it came from anybody. All right. If you think about the sonnets he wrote, that came from Italy. Many of the stories he's borrowing from Italy. He's borrowing, even in Taming of the Shrew, he's borrowing some of that from the Middle East. Shakespeare was an internationalist. Yeah? It wasn't just a Brit or an Englishman. And so when we're fighting for what we're fighting for, we fight for the internationalism of the cultures that we enjoy. Even when they hold up and say, oh, fish and chips, that's marvellous, that's us. Really? Well, actually, fried fish, probably Jewish. Chips, probably Belgian. There you go. Probably. So whatever it is, wherever you turn, whichever way you look, we share this stuff and things change all the time. You blink and you miss it and it's changed. Whatever it is, music, art. I'm a passionate lover of country music of one sort or another, particularly the original stuff, Carter family stuff. I found out the other day, I had no idea. The Carter family, when they went around collecting music in the Appalachians, I thought they just collected from, you know, white Appalachian guys. They didn't. They took with them an African-American guy who taught the key Carter family woman how to pick the guitar. She was the first white person ever to know how to do it. She was taught by an African-American to use her thumb to pick the tune out. No one had ever done that before, and she learnt that because she went with her dad, with an African-American musician, to African-American homes where they wouldn't have ever gone themselves without it. Right there at the heart of Jim Crow laws and the virtual apartheid of the southern states, there were people sharing musics. It goes on everywhere, and we fight to celebrate that. We not only fight that, we fight these evil cunts. You've got a date, March the 26th. In Wandsworth, what have they done? Wandsworth Council, 6 million to buy a plot of land for a school that's going to be a, quotes, free school, and it ain't free because they've said that the kids nearest to the school can't come because they're working class kids, dodgy, dangerous. So what they're going to have is kids from further away. The Daily Mirror raised the issue, and in fact they possibly rescinded the deal. But while they're spending that 6 million, they're cutting the local library, 216,000. Spend 6 million on a divisive, evil little outfit like free schools, and at the same time cut the local library. There it is, the culture thing. Deprive the very people who need it free books in your hand. There they go. So we fight the cuts, and I'm going to use a little, if you like, it's an anecdote or whatever, a sort of poem really, that comes from my father's grandfather. My father's grandfather was a Jewish Polish immigrant. He came to this country sometime in the 1890s and joined the Socialist Democratic Federation, the forerunner of the Communist Party. And he was in that, and my dad's job as a young child was very interested. He was interested in literacy, so he had to read the Daily Worker to his grandfather because he couldn't read the English. But his grandfather explained to him what unity is. He said to my father, he said, if you take one match, you can break it. If you take 2 matches, you can break them. If you take 3 matches, maybe you can break them. You take a whole box of matches, you can't break them. That's unity. That's a union. I will finish with this poem. And it's about the 38 bus. There's nothing more militant than the 38 bus. Does anyone know the 38 bus? Hey! Let's hear it for the 38 bus! Hey! The bus goes goes on, and it's full, and it's leaving, and it's laughing, and it's going on, and it's morning, and it's evening, and it's in Punjabi, and it's daytime, and it's full, and it stops, and it's suspicious, and it starts, and it's in Igbo, and it's shouting, and it's shopping, and it's rapping, and it's lit up, and it's dark, and it's shove up, will you, and it's crying, and it's squealing, and it's in Dutch, and it's breaking, and it's in Geordie, and it's at the station, and it's skint, and it's full of babies, and it's full of men, and it's going on, and it's past the Vietnamese cafe, and it's past the tyre depot, and it's past the silver car, and it's chauffeur, and it's waiting for Sinatra to start up, and it's in patois, and it's chips and vinegar, and it's past the park, and it's full of football, and it's a bellyache, and it's full of jokes, and it's scared, and it's in Arabic, and it's back from school, and it's pushing, and it's raining, and it's, whew, right armpits, man, and it's tranks, and it's angry, it's full of yesterday, and it's riding under the lights, and it's the smell of oil, and it's pissed, and it's combing, and it's kissing, and it's packets of rice, and it's cassava, and it's over the canal, and it's the baby's bottle, and it's over the railway, and it's under the cranes, and it's in the shadows of the palaces in glass, and it's in Albanian, and it's bleach, and it's the homework in late, and it's spuds, and it's the hijab, and it's shoulders next to backs, next to fronts, and it's revving, and it's too late, and it's too early, and it's not enough, and it's going on, and it's on time, and it's dreaming, and it'll get there today, and it will get there tomorrow. When will it get there? Tomorrow. Thank you.